as a company, we operate in different countries around the world. So we're operating in the US, we're operating in Europe, and one of our key markets is also the Middle East. What we learned is that the things that motivate a certain population can be vastly different depending on how they've grown up, where they're based, what their socioeconomic status is, and so on. So the kind of messaging that works really well in the United States, for instance, may or may not work really well in the UAE for a number of reasons. So the people fundamentally are different. Oftentimes, when we promote educational products, one of the biggest transformations that that educational product can bring is a change in your income, and therefore a change in your quality of life. So if I'm promoting a, let's say I'm promoting a business analytics product that helps you learn business analytics and use it in your job or get a job in business analytics in the United States, I can always use messaging that's closer to learn business analytics and start earning an X amount, learn business analytics and get promoted to a better position in your current employer with your current employer and so on, right? But then when you take that same messaging and same approach to the United Arab Emirates, you won't see it work. You will just see completely different results. And one of the major reasons is what I mentioned earlier, the socioeconomic status, how they've grown up. People in the UAE are not really interested in making more money because money is not really an important object for them. Most of the people in the UAE have a lot more money than the people in, or the general public in the US. And I'm talking about specifically people from the UAE right now. So, and not necessarily the expats that live there. Um, they're not really motivated with the same factors like make more money or get a job promotion. So what we saw that, that kind of messaging working in the US, when we brought that over to UAE, it didn't work. However, what we did find is that, people in the UAE are way more family oriented, way more interested, or not interested, but, they're way more inclined to respond to a message that helps them perhaps with their status in society. So when we took that same message and changed that from the US and changed it to learn business analytics degree and be the most educated person in a tech field in your family, we saw that people were responding better to that versus the message that was about earning more money and getting a promotion. So I think working in these different markets has helped us learn through research, but also through practical experience that the kind of messages that resonate well with one audience does not resonate well with the other. And you really need to do specific messaging, taking into consideration how they've grown up, what are the factors that have affected their mindset in that specific field and or specific space, and really use that to craft very personalized messages that are going to resonate with them versus taking the one message fits all approach, which a lot of agencies actually do, and are not successful in I guess executing. So another example, Orion operates in multiple countries around the world, from the Middle East to the United States to Europe to Asia, and we've seen varying or very varying results per country. One of the things that really stands out, for instance, is that when we market in the US or say in Europe, it doesn't really, or it does matter, but I don't think the impact of using very personalized creatives is very large. And let me share an example of that. So, for instance, we went to market for a very large upskilling program in the Middle East, North Africa, and we have an NDA, so I cannot mention the name of the client. But essentially, we tested. We conducted a test where we used local people in the ads versus using international people in the ads, and we conducted that test in Saudi Arabia versus doing that same test in Turkey. So what we saw is that in Turkey, the impact driven from Turkish people in the ads versus non-Turkish people in the ads was minimal. So we saw the same kind of or similar returns coming in from Turkish versus non-Turkish people. But then when we went to Saudi Arabia, and we put international people in the ads versus using actual Saudis in the ads, we saw a much better cost per acquisition, and we saw way better engagement with locals in the ads versus international people in the ads. So I think this also varies differently per country, and yeah, it was a very big learning, and we tested this a couple of times with different countries, and we found one of the biggest learnings was we found that in the Middle East in general, the Middle Eastern population responds way more to personalized ads where they see people that look like them versus when we go abroad in different countries like Turkey and the United States, where it matters less on who is in that ad, and what matters most is what the message is that is being conveyed.